Let's see how this goes. Is it just going to start immediately? Because it was doing that earlier. Yeah. It doesn't even ask me if I want to go live. It's just like, here you go. So, in the hopes that this is working, which I will check over here, and my phone tells me it's working. Welcome to In Greater Detail. It's been one of the biggest requests for me to do more, because my videos are, obviously, they're all 128 seconds long, so I do have to give a broad overview of things, and that means I can't go into as much detail as I would want to, or that I research. I do a fair amount of research for every video, and a lot of it doesn't make it in. So, the point of this was to, and I think the capture is kind of off. I'm kind of looking in the OBS and it seems a little off. I don't know if that's just the YouTube preview, but running a stream solo is tough. If you are new here, I am 128 Seconds. You might know me from the Gravity Max YouTube channel. We both do educational streams over on Gravity Max, and here on my personal channel I do 128 second long videos of complex topics. I'm just going to make sure that I am running alright, because again, running a stream by yourself is a little difficult. It seems like I'm doing okay. Alright. So, sorry for that impromptu sound check, but yeah, so feel free to use the chat. If you're watching back, feel free to comment. But yeah, so this is In Greater Detail, and I had initially planned to start it in January, because I was just going to do a recap of the videos I did in January, but because of breaks and with schools and with tests, it got moved to today, Wednesday, which is my usual upload day. So I just decided, hey, let me do the stream here, let me start it out here. So I just have, some of my videos pulled up, and I'm just going to talk about them, rant about them. If you guys have any, or you know any facts about the topics I'm talking about, feel free to drop it in chat. We can discuss it, all that kind of stuff. And I also have to give a big thank you to you guys for blowing up the Political Compass video. That video did exceptionally well. And it's still going. I believe it's somewhere around, I don't even know, 800 views, which is crazy to me. Yeah, 806 views as of today. That's nuts. Thank you guys so much. That is fantastic to see that so many of you care about, the stuff that I'm covering and all that. It's really nice to see. But yeah, like I said, I have some of my stuff pulled up. I also have some music going on in the background. Let me know how you guys feel about that. Hopefully it doesn't go rogue. What happened on my last stream, I think, is I have a playlist of stream music, non-copyrighted stuff, and for whatever reason, I set it to loop and I set it to just shuffle. For whatever reason, it just went rogue and went off to music that was probably copyrighted, but we learn and we grow from mistakes. That's what you gotta do. So over here, I have Boston Tea Party. The three main ones I'm going to be talking about today are the Boston Tea Party, and I can go through them, Stalin versus Trotsky, and inaugurations. But yeah, getting into it, I have all my research documents pulled up over here. Boston Tea Party was nice because I was able to get it out on the day that the Boston Tea Party happened. It happened to coincide December 16th. I was able to get it out on December 16th. It was crazy because a lot of it, and with all my videos, I learn so much from doing it, stuff that I didn't already initially know. And for this one, I didn't really know the scale of how much tea was dumped in the river, because, you know, you hear about it in school. They're like, and they dumped tea over the river, and you're like, okay, why was that such a big thing? Well, I think what I talked about is that they dumped over 342 boxes of tea, which was worth an insane amount of money at the time, and all the things leading up to it are super interesting. And I would suggest doing research on any of the events leading up to it. The serious debt that Britain was in, I had no idea that Britain was in that much debt from the 7 Years' War. Another thing that I could do an entire video on, Britain versus France. We have not covered that a lot in school, or at least my school, but it makes so much more sense because, you know, it would make sense for Britain to, like, be taxing the colonists, but when you add in the context of, oh, they had just fought a war and now they're in serious debt, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. And then all the things leading up to it, like the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts. The Townshend Acts really put it into perspective, because that's where they taxed all of these things, and then they lift those taxes later on, and they had taxed all these individual things, and then they lift a ton of them except for tea. I think tea was probably one of the only ones that was left there. So, the Townshend Acts, 1767, lasts until 1770 when they decided to repeal it, but they left in the tax on tea. And that's where it became a symbol, because tea then became the one piece that was left of the British taxing them to what they felt was an unreasonable degree. And that's why it became a symbol. And the whole Sons of Liberty group, you had a lot of these groups forming anti-British groups, but then you also did have people that were the loyalists who stayed with the British Empire. But Samuel Adams definitely was one of the heads of the Sons of Liberty. And there were 116 documented people that participated in the actual act. And then they repealed the Townshend Acts here, and they leave in tea, and that's what made it the symbol. But what I was saying is that when they actually did it, there were 119 participants, or 116, excuse me, that were documented, which means that there were probably more that didn't get documented. 342 boxes of tea from these three ships, and over $1 million of a loss. But again, the money wasn't a real issue. Britain was in debt, so that definitely hurt them. But the real sticking point is that it was tea, that it was the symbol of the British Empire, of the British Empire's control over America, and the colonists' response was, we don't want you here. We want to dump your tea. We think these taxes are unfair. So a whole lot of symbolism from these actions, and when you put it all into context, it makes a lot more sense, because that's what I always remembered when I was learning about it when I was going through school, is why did they pick tea? Why did they, do it at like the middle of the night? Why was it such a blow to the British Empire? All of these questions I had, and this gave me the context, and I hope it gave you guys the context. And I also never realized, I knew, but I never knew why the Sons of Liberty dressed like Mohawk Indians. That always seemed like really strange to me, but I did some research and there were a couple different accounts, but the one I put in the video is that they did it to symbolize their native spirit and also just to disguise their identities. So just a whole lot of symbolism going on, and it's really a fascinating time period. But I am partial to other histories, not just American history, because at least in American school, American history is kind of beaten to the ground, and there's not much of it. Like, I would say that this is pretty much like where it starts with this kind of business. But yeah, this one was a fun one to do research on because it was a callback. I remember learning about this, like I've said, all the way through like earlier school, like middle school, a little bit of elementary school, but I was glad that I could actually go in depth into it and understand the minutia about it, because you can know that something happened, but you might not know all the significance behind it or the effects that came after it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun making that video. I have a lot of fun making all my videos. But I had a lot of fun, and I mean a whole lot of fun making Stalin versus Trotsky. I think that's the most fun I've had making a video in quite a while. Because of how completely insane the time period was. Let me pull up my notes. I have so many notes for this. Just detailing detailing Lenin's death and then Stalin's rivalry with Trotsky. And honestly, he had a rivalry with anyone that wasn't in his corner. And then when he came to power, he just purged everyone that was in his corner. So not really funny, but interesting quirk of history there. But Lenin, just learning about him, I could do an entire video on just him, but he had so much sway. He was basically the leader of the Soviet Union. He created it, and he had all this power, and he was actively trying to instate rule and trying to make a comprehensive government. He believed heavily in Marxism, and he did have his own spin-off of it, Leninism, which was actually what this video started as. The original title for this video, like for the video that was going to be on this week, January 13th, was Leninism versus Stalinism versus Marxism versus Trotskyism. And then I'm doing this research about how the ideals are similar in many ways but different in other ways. And then I noticed that the biggest difference lied in Stalinism and Trotskyism. And Stalinism is just completely insane as its own thing, how authoritarian it is. And obviously we see the outcome of that. But I saw such a contrast between these two policies that I went into it a little bit, and I found that Trotsky was almost the leader of the Soviet Union. If it hadn't been for Stalin's cunning, thank you, Darren Wang in chat says, "Wow, great stream." Yeah, thanks, man. With Trotsky versus Stalin, it was Stalin's efforts through propaganda, through, I'm sure, bribes, and through just ties to other people in the Russian Congress or the Russian Senate, which right now the Politburo, that was the name of it. I hope I'm saying that right. But he had ties to all those guys, and that allowed him to be able to kind of push Trotsky off the table a little bit. I apologize for my dog. But after Lenin died, Stalin immediately went into go mode. It was like the starting gun for him, because he immediately knew that someone was going to have to fill that power vacuum. And this is rumored, but it's rumored that Stalin told that. So when Lenin dies, Trotsky is out of Russia. He's elsewhere, or at least he's not in Moscow. So he's elsewhere. Lenin dies. They hold a meeting. Trotsky isn't there because he's out of the city. And the story goes that Stalin was in charge of writing the telegram, sending the telegram over to Trotsky to let Trotsky know that Lenin had died and when his funeral was going to be. And the story goes, and Trotsky supports this, I'm pretty sure, that Stalin told Trotsky the wrong date for Lenin's funeral, so that Trotsky wouldn't be at the funeral, so that Stalin could look better in the public eye, and Trotsky would look like he hadn't cared about Lenin while he was alive. So even on the night that Lenin died, Stalin went into this flow of just making himself the best or making himself look like the best possible candidate to take his place. One thing that I didn't get to talk about in this video, but I did a decent bit of research on, and I kind of tried to allude to it. Here, let me see. Let me check the script. I have all my scripts up as well. Yeah, I don't think I really got to it. The good thing about having 128-second videos is I can look through my script really fast. Yeah, I don't think I really got to it in this video, but what Stalin did inside the Politburo was he had really good ties with Lev Kamenev and Gregory Zinoviev. And I talked about Gregory Zinoviev somewhere in here. Yeah, here. Gregory Zinoviev. Yeah, he was a temporary ally of Stalin. And yeah, this is what he would do. He would record comments from Trotsky criticizing Stalin, because Trotsky was a very outspoken guy. He would make big speeches, or he would talk very loudly amongst other members in the Politburo how he thought Stalin was going to run the Soviet Union into the ground. And Zinoviev would hear this and record them and spin them as Trotsky criticizing the Communist Party itself, which is just, it's a tactic we see a lot today with news organizations maybe having a sway one side or to the other. But this was one of the main parts of Stalin's propaganda effort against Trotsky, because Trotsky was really one of the strongest contenders for the position. So with this, with these ties to Gregory and to Lev Kamenev, he created what was known as a troika, which was basically just a council of three. And what they would do is they would function to block Trotsky. Block Trotsky in the Politburo, try and stop him from making decisions, try and prevent him from being promoted, which they did a couple of times. So Trotsky is just repeatedly just hindered by Stalin. So Stalin can just keep making himself look better and better while Trotsky gets pushed off to the side. To go a little bit into their ideologies, one of the biggest differences between Stalinism and Trotskyism was Stalin wanted communism solely in one country. And what he meant by that is that he wanted the Marxist ideals and the communist ideals to be largely widespread through Russia solely, and not out to the other countries in the Soviet Union, like Kazakhstan or other countries like that. So Trotsky thought the exact opposite. He thought that if the Soviet Union was going to last, there would need to be communist revolutions in all of the countries of the Soviet Union, so that the Soviet Union could work together as one unit. And I'm obviously I'm not supporting either, because obviously Stalin, he had a horrific impact on Russia, and we don't know how Trotsky's plan would have worked out. A lot of historians say that ultimately Trotsky kind of would have been the same. He wouldn't have been as paranoid as Stalin, because that's what Stalin did. And that's what I talk about in the later half, or in the later section of the video. It's Stalin's Great Purge, where anyone that he even thought was against him, he just had killed. Those two guys that he worked with, Lev Kamenev and Gregory Zinoviev, purged them both. Pretty much everyone that he had worked with to get to this platform, he just had executed. Anyone suspected of conspiring against him, and over 1 million in total dead, because he would also just straight up kill civilians. He would have them executed because he was just so paranoid that now that he had the power, people were going to try and take it from him. That was his mindset, and he kept just, wiping people out because he thought he was just going to lose this power. He was a really paranoid guy. But yeah, I was about his book. Trotsky writes this book, The Lessons of October, where he claimed to have a large hand in the Russian revolutions, which Lenin is known for. And again, Lenin can be his own video in it of himself. He is just so much to him, and in such a short time. I think he died relatively young, but yeah, just a whole lot of it. Thank you, Mason Gordon. Thanks. So with this book, Lessons of October, obviously relating to the October Russian Revolution, he claims that he had a large part of it. Now, again, that's disputed. Trotsky did know Lenin around the time period. I forget exactly what date he met him in, but 1902. So yeah, 1902, so before the revolutions in Russia. In this book, he claims to have a large part of it, and again, that's disputed. But Stalin and everyone else that was in his corner actually used this book against him, because they eventually, it just backfired, is the best way to put it. That basically, again, Stalin, Gregory, and Lev were all masters of spinning Trotsky's words against him. So I believe with this specific book, what they did is they took it as he was disrespecting Lenin in a way. And that's the thing, is that once Lenin died, he kind of became a god figure amongst the Politburo. Anyone that spoke out against him or tried to diminish his position would be not literally but figuratively crushed in the Politburo. So I believe they spun this in the way that, because he's saying he has a large part, he's saying that Lenin has a smaller part, and they were able to spin it that way, and Trotsky started becoming more and more hated. And eventually this propaganda effort spread to the other countries of the Soviet Union, and then even countries outside of the Soviet Union. There were other countries that, I just had to make sure I was on the same music playlist, that it hadn't gone rogue there. There were other countries that were calling for Trotsky to be exiled from the country. And weirdly enough, Stalin actually voted to keep Trotsky in the country. I don't know why he did that. I don't know if he wanted to humiliate him further. I don't know if he wanted to show that he wasn't, if it was some kind of test for him to show that, oh no, I'm not trying to actively demonize him to the general public. I don't know what it was, but eventually 1925, and this was my mistake in the video. I think I had said that he had been kicked out in 1925. He wasn't actually kicked out in 1925, but it was heavily requested of him, and he ended up stepping down around that time period. So he wasn't actually kicked out. And I think I mentioned that down in the description. That was a mistake. But the hate for Trotsky grew so much, even after he stepped down from that specific position of power. He still held a little lower form of power in the general Russian government or the Soviet government. But his big thing was that he was in control of the armies, because he had led the armies in the Russian Civil War. He led the Red Army against the White Army. Thank you, Christian Wadwani. Stream is poggers. Thank you. So he loses all of these army positions, and eventually it grew so much that people that would openly support Trotsky, members of the army that would openly support Trotsky, were actually kicked out of the army. Hate for Trotsky was so widespread, and it was just Stalin in the background pulling strings to ensure that Trotsky was further and further and further demonized. And 1927, Trotsky gets exiled. I know I have that in here. Yep. He gets exiled to Kazakhstan first, in a place called Alma-Ata. And he stays there for 2 years until I guess Stalin or the rest of the government decided that Kazakhstan was too close to Russia, so they exiled him to Turkey in 1929. And then the purges start. Stalin starts. At this point, Stalin has basically achieved almost full power. The Great Purge was a combination of him almost getting full power and him wanting to just sink into full power so that no one in the entire country could challenge him. So Trotsky sees this, and he flees to Mexico in 1937. So, a little bit of avoiding all of this, and he's staying there in Mexico. But where he met Frida Kahlo, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I had that in here. Hey, I'm streaming. Sorry about that. But yeah, he meets Frida Kahlo. I always like that in history, where just people you wouldn't think would really meet actually end up meeting. Like, Frida Kahlo is a very famous artist, and Trotsky is a Russian revolutionary, so you wouldn't really think that the two would have met. But they did, and it's just a little quirk of history. So he flees to Mexico in 1937, but eventually Stalin's assassins do reach him, and they take him out. And it's actually a crazy story. The guy that he sent to kill him killed him, or attacked him with a pickaxe, and he had messed with the bottom of it so it was shorter so he could conceal the pickaxe in his coat. And so what he did is that Trotsky was leaning over his desk or something, and this guy just takes the pickaxe and tries to bash in his head, and Trotsky actually managed to get up and knock the assassin unconscious, but he was already so severely wounded by this pickaxe that he died a couple of hours later, I'm pretty sure. But it's just such an insane story that he was able to just get back up and beat that guy to a state of unconsciousness. But yeah, so after Trotsky is dead, it's almost symbolic of Stalin just assuming absolute control over the Soviet Union. Absolutely undisputed control. And the purges continue, or I think the first Great Purge was done. Yeah, it ended in 1938. But Stalin just consolidated his power, and he became the ultimate force in the country. People that supported Trotsky were now thrown into our thank you, Yale admissions. If that is actually Yale admissions, thanks. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in your college. Yale admissions says, wow, this is intellectual erudition. I think they meant education. Fit for institution. Unless erudition is, an actual word. Erudition. Oh, wow. It is a word. Wow, look at me. I just looked dumb in front of Yale admissions, everyone. And yeah, so yeah, hit my email up, Yale. That's cool. Look at that, Yale. But yeah, so Stalin becomes the absolute dominant power in the country. No one can challenge him. None of this. And yeah, so this video was so fun because it was so many different things pushed into one video. Originally, it was the ideologies clashing, Stalinism versus Trotskyism, and then it was just Lenin's death and the power struggle. It was his propaganda effort. It was all of this. It was his rise to power. It was Trotsky's assassination. It was all of this. I'm telling you, this was the most fun I had making a video in a while. And I also liked that I was able to get footage of Lenin with a cat. Again, just strange little quirks of history. Yeah, I had a lot of fun making this video, and yeah, you guys seem to like it too, so really happy about that. And then the other one I wanted to talk about, because it was concerning the time period. Again, this was supposed to be all my January videos, but because of school breaks and tests and stuff, I wasn't able to get, to meet some deadlines that I needed to. So, but I did want to do inaugurations, and because it was especially relevant. And this again was a very fun video because the actual process of inauguration, it's pretty simple. The the new president gets sworn in, the new vice president gets sworn in. So what I really tried to capitalize on in this video was what celebrations do they have? What else happens around the Capitol building when a new president takes place? So I focused a lot on, I tried to do, and I think I did pretty well, a little history piece on inaugurations as a whole, going back to George Washington's inauguration, and that's always cool to see that a tradition that we have now goes all the way back to the first ever president. And I talked, a bit about FDR's inauguration, which is when they switched it over to January 20th. It used to be April 30th. So everyone before FDR, I think it was FDR's second term where they switched it over to January 20th, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, his second term. So, yeah, it was a lot of minutia that I wanted to get into, but a lot of fun stuff as well, such as, and also important details like the Supreme Court Justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, is the one that actually swears the president in, and we saw that when Biden got sworn in. With other things, I focused on Biden's presidential inaugural committee, where I did talk about the presidential inaugural committee, where I talked about, yep, you should look for J-Lo and Lady Gaga. I felt like they did a pretty good job. But I also talked about the poets that we've had perform at the Capitol before, notably Maya Angelou, who the new poet that we saw come up on January 20th, Amanda Gorman, paid a little homage to. In some of her interviews, she referenced Maya Angelou a lot. And she's both of those people are fantastic poets, and yeah. But yeah, a little clip of her speaking, and our new poet Amanda Gorman. I felt that her poem was very, very good, very well crafted, and had a good message. Thank you, Futurology, in chat. Yeah, I plan for this to be a recurring series at the end of every month. So this is technically the January edition. or I just titled it episode 1. So you should expect the next episode of this coming out at the end of February, maybe the start of March, because February's short. Excuse me. But yeah, I just wanted to get into the fun stuff that happens around the Capitol building, such as the parade, and occasionally they have a luncheon. This is Barack Obama refusing fajitas or whatever those may be. But, you know, it's fun to see people put aside politics to have a celebration, a little dinner. And there's a ton of security. I found this image. This was so cool to me. With our newest branch of the military, the USSF, the United States Space Force, all these people go into the security around the place. And yeah, just a whole lot of stuff goes into planning it. And it was just very, very topical, very all of that. And I was so mad, actually, not because of the inauguration, but because of the inauguration, around noon, lined up perfectly with my lunch period. And our teachers aren't supposed to dictate our lunch period. It's the subject that dictates the lunch period. So I was in Spanish, and I was supposed to have second wave lunch, even though I do schooling from home, just being a distance learner. But it coincided perfectly with the inauguration, so I was like, cool, I'm gonna watch a piece of history on my lunch break. But for whatever reason, my Spanish teacher decided to move our lunch wave, which she's probably not allowed to do, to a time slot that didn't coincide with it. And I was ranting to a bunch of my friends. I was like, I don't want to say in the future that I missed Biden's inauguration, or any presidential inauguration. I just find very fascinating. I didn't want to say I missed a piece of history because my Spanish teacher moved what lunch period I have. So I took, and I don't advise you do this, but I took my own liberty with that, and I went and I watched the inauguration with my mom. And it was cool to see. I thought all the performers did a really good job, and it's really the first inauguration that I've been conscious for, to be honest. But I just found this piece fascinating. And I don't think I'd be doing you guys justice if I didn't talk about the political compass video, because you guys have just blown it out of the park. It's so awesome to see that kind of engagement and all that stuff. And again, I never do this stuff for the numbers, but I do want to educate as many people as I can in the shortest amount of time, 128 seconds. And you guys just knocked the political compass out of the park. A video that I never thought would be the #1 watched video on my channel. I made it in July of 2020, and I do consider it one of the benchmarks of my channel, because if you go through the videos, that's when I started. First of all, I moved away from the blackboard style that I used to do, in place of just doing actual, good thumbnails. But other than that, I really got into the details of the political compass. And yeah, I like the memes about the political compass, where people will just put, news clippings on different sections of the political compass. They'll draw little characters in the different quadrants. Maybe that's why this blew up. But for whatever reason, this now has 806 views. Let me knock it over to you guys. It now has 806 views. That is crazy to me. I love that so much, man. I'm so glad that you guys like that video. And and it just inspired a big discussion in the comments. Some of the comments are, a little strange, but, it's an open place for you guys to talk and all this stuff. I did not get into the crazy expanded political compass, but I think I might, eventually. I don't know if you guys have seen, again, I just want to keep checking to make sure that I'm on my non-copyrighted music, but you guys have seen that political compass that has just been expanded with all of the little squares. Here, let me pull it up for you guys. I might do that just because of how fantastic you guys have done with this video. But yeah, making this video was, I would say it was like the around this time, and I've always wanted to educate people, and I've always wanted to make content for you guys, but this video was around the time that I saw that this was going to be an effective tool, honestly. And I'm so happy that you guys responded to it. But yeah. Here, let me try and find it. Here, it's like detailed political compass. Yeah, this just insane thing. Here. That. I always find this to be completely crazy, but this was kind of the principle. And here you can actually see, I don't think it's capturing my cursor, but you look top left, you have Stalinism, and you go down a little bit, and then you get Leninism, and then you go down a little bit more than that, and that's Trotskyism. And I think that actually does depict it pretty well, because, again, both Stalin and Trotsky wanted a communist revolution, but they had different ideas of it, and Trotsky was going to be a lot more hands-off, a lot less, bureaucratic, a lot less, all of that. But I don't know. It's just, this is, whoever made this has too much time on their hands, honestly. But yeah, so this video, I'm so glad that you guys liked it, honestly. We have more chat. Oh, Yale Mission says, are you far off left? Like, okay, I don't think that's Yale. Actually, Yale. No, man. I don't want to take a political standpoint, because this channel is purely education. If I made a channel where I'm just like talking to you guys, ranting about stuff, then I would, feel comfortable divulging where I fall on the political compass. But for now, everyone should just assume that I am not even on the compass. I am just a source of pure information. If you see that as being a centrist, fine. Hate me for being a centrist. But on this channel, I do not have a political opinion. I do not have a political voice. The only values that I hold are, I believe in general human rights. I can publicly say that I dislike what Stalin did. I thought he's an absolutely horrible leader. He led to the deaths of millions of people. So I can obviously, almost spilled my water. I can obviously say stuff like that. But I'm not going to give any critique on a politician. With the Joe Biden video, literally all I did was just go through a detailed list of the most important things that he had done, like events he was part of, things he had ruled on, stuff like that, is what I tried to do. I really don't want to make those videos political in nature. I want to just provide a background for information, for context on a certain person. And yeah, I would say that's probably actually the most difficult part of this channel, is deciding what information to include. Because it can be really tough, because I do a fantastic amount of research, not to pat myself on the back, but more research than I should do for some school projects maybe. But I wanted to, and if there are problems with that, insane, very detailed political compass. That is, I in no way believe that that is necessarily true. I said it was useful for Stalinism, Leninism, Trotskyism, all that stuff. But I've never really looked into it. So if there's issues with that, because I kind of get the notion that, again, it was made on Reddit, all of that, then, I do not subscribe to any of that. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, I really try not to have a vocal voice, and I try just to include only the most important stuff, so that you guys can get a quick summary of what you need to know in a short amount of time. But yeah, I guess since it's episode 1, we can talk a little bit more about videos that didn't necessarily fall in January. So let's have a look. Let's see what we got here. The Dead by Daylight video. That was just me having fun. I love that game. I got all the way up to like rank. I'm not too good at it. I got up to like rank 12, and then I guess me and my buddy stopped playing it. And that's for Survivor, by the way. I don't really play Killer all that much, but that was just me having fun, wanting to talk about something that I was, really enthused on. It was one of my hobbies. I used to play that game a ton. It was really fun. It was really fun making that video, learning about all the lore of it, because that's kind of what caught my eye about the game, is that, sure, it's like very simple. One person's a killer, 4 people are survivors, and they just need to start generators. But when they start adding in lore about stuff, that makes it a more interesting experience for the player. But history of music, I loved making history of music. Every day I get more and more into music, because, and I don't know, I'm probably weird for this, I didn't really listen to music all that much when I was younger. Obviously my parents played music and all that, but I would never like go into my room and listen to music, if you get me. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to music. I wouldn't put music on in the background of stuff I was doing. I wasn't really interested in it, I guess. But lately, and when I hit my teens, I was like, I really got into music. So making the history of music, and I know I have to fix that thumbnail, I have to make the text a little more legible, was awesome to me, because I got to use all of the clips of music from around the world. And that was really nice to see, that no matter where we come from, no matter where we are, we have stuff that really connects us and ties us together. Like music. I think, music, the great uniter, all of that. And I had a ton of fun making that video. Let me pull up the script for that one. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for being active in chat. Thank you guys for just watching, tuning in with me. I haven't streamed solo since my thumbnail stream, which was quite a bit ago, 5 months ago. And that's another thing I wanted to call out, is in 11 subscribers we hit 256 subscribers, which is 2 to the 8th, double of 128, and I want to thank you guys so much for that as well. I will obviously make another milestone for that, but I want to thank you guys so much for getting me this far. And I don't know, I did thumbnail stream for 128. I'll think of something to do for 256. I'll make it fun. But let me pull up the script for history music, because this was something that, firstly, I had to cut down quite a bit, because I'm spanning all of music. Like, music started, the first instrument was used around 41,000 BCE by the Neanderthals, which I talk about in the video. Let me pull it up for you guys. But just because I couldn't really start with the first. I had the first recorded song, but the first ever piece of music was probably a caveman just banging two rocks together, honestly. So I couldn't really start there, so I wanted to start with the first instrument, which is this. What you see, that is made out of a bear cub. It is the left femur of a bear cub, if that is ever a trivia question. Don't know why it would be, but, you know, if anyone ever asked you, what was the first instrument? You could say, left femur of a bear cub, and they'll be like, why do you know that? And you can direct them to this video. So yeah, around 41,000 BCE, yeah. So yeah, 43,000 years ago, by the Neanderthals, and it's just, music has just been going since. Like, this guy, I believe, this guy was performing somewhere in Southeast Asia. This is a traditional mariachi band, and of course the Scotsman playing the pipes. But the first recorded piece of music was this Hurrying Hymn number 6, and you can actually listen to this. I'm pretty sure here I can actually check because I have it pulled up over here. Yes, it is in the description of that video. You can check it out and you can listen to Hurrying Hymn number 6. There's a guy, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he recreated this song and played it on a traditional instrument, I'm pretty sure, and he does a fantastic job with it. Highly recommend checking that out. So yeah, first bit of recorded music, and you'll see a lot of people point to that. It's like the first evidence of music theory, I guess. But yeah, so with other stuff, it spilled over into ancient Greece. Yeah, that was a cool picture I found. I really like that picture, or the drawing, I guess. Excuse me as I sip my water. But yeah, and then you get into classical music, and music starts diversifying. Like, this is, again, I'm blanking on his name. I think Vatsorig Vanchig, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's a Mongolian throat singer. I love listening to him. Actually, I do listen to his stuff, and he's such a kind person. I would highly recommend subscribing to him. I'm pretty sure I left him in the description as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Please subscribe to him. He is just a treasure of a human being, and he will perform with other people. He performed with his daughter. He's a great guy. I would really highly recommend subscribing to him. But yeah, and then you get into the diversification of classical music with the, starting with the medieval, going all the way until present date, because people are still composing. I know a couple of composers, and I really do like this kind of music. Yeah, so just a lot of cool stuff. And again, this is me having fun with the 1900s. You have, jazz being performed. I'm pretty sure that is Louis Armstrong, because he's doing the thing with his cheeks as he plays the trumpet. I remember when I used to play the trombone all the way back in middle school, and when you start learning it, they tell you that don't puff your cheeks out, like that actually hinders you. And when I was being told this, my band teacher was like, don't puff your cheeks out when you're playing a brass instrument. There's only one guy that could do that, and his name was Louis Armstrong. So yeah, just pioneers of jazz music starting in all honesty, started in the late 1800s, but late enough that you could call it the 1900s. I think the first jazz piece was around like 1890, but that obviously overflowed into the 1900s. And then if you really want to go for the rich stuff, you go 1920s, 1930s jazz is when jazz really found its home. And then, you get into stuff like the Backstreet Boys, Eminem, Britney Spears, I was just throwing in people. And then I made this slide, and I know it doesn't really look too impressive, but it's just a lot of people that I respect in the musical community. you know, not their personal lives, because John Lennon's on this slide, but I love their music. Bowie, I've been a huge fan of Bowie. My dad's a huge fan of Bowie. A lot of my friends are. Ella Fitzgerald, you know, I love her music. Jimi Hendrix, Elvis, Prince, the Beatles. Just monumental figures in music, regardless of their personal lives. But yeah, it really just ties us together throughout history, and that was the message I really wanted to end on, was that from, you know, the Neanderthals to the, you know, if it's gonna let me land on, it's not gonna let me land on Neanderthals, but to people of the medieval ages, to us today, to the future. I know I chose like a really grim image for the future. I got called on that, but I don't know. I just needed something for the future, and yeah, I had so much fun making this video because music is just so very important to me, and I was glad that you guys liked it as well. But yeah, I think that's actually probably going to wrap it up for this episode of In Greater Depth. As the series starts picking up, feel free to leave any questions in the chat. I'll almost immediately respond to it if I'm not responding to someone else's question. And there are some details about these topics that I don't know. And if you know them and you find them fascinating or interesting, drop them down in the chat, and we can have a conversation about them. But I would like to thank all you guys for joining me for the first episode of In Greater Detail. I might have called it In Greater Depth earlier. I was going in between those two names, but thank you for joining me for In Greater Detail. This will be a monthly thing, and yeah, I hope you guys keep enjoying the videos. I'm enjoying making them for you guys, and I'm looking forward to hitting 256 so I can make another stream for you guys, do something cool. But yeah, I think that pretty much does it. And yeah, so just thank you guys so much for watching, and take care. I will see you guys later. Bye bye.